Oh, yeah, there we go.
Isn't it better this way?
Oh,
See,
that's
it's
wonderful.
much better.
Yeah, that's a better look. How you doing, man?
Excellent. What does imitable mean?
Pardon me?
Imitable one. Imitable.
Imitable.
Imitable. Well, the great one. How's that? Jarrett Barrel from USA Today. Hey, you don't
Yeah,
see the video
I've never
count.
had anyone describe me as that.
What do they usually describe you as?
Oh, just cool. Just a cool dude,
All right,
man.
Cool dad. Cool. Anyway, we're having too much fun. NFL coaches breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
For you, were the highlights.
Yeah, I worked the room, man. Excuse me.
Yeah.
One highlight was seeing Bill Belichick dressed to the nines.
Oh, is that right? Yeah,
Oh,
he had
yeah.
a blue blazer on, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He was the best dressed coach today. And, Belichick has skipped the session before.
Mm-hmm.
He typically comes in late. Mm-hmm. He did that again today. And then he added another twist to it. He actually stood in a corner and conducted his press conference.
Oh, that explains I saw this gigantic gaggle of press as I was at Dirk Carter's table, and I thought, I'm not going to get up in the middle. What's going on over there? That's what was going on.
Yeah, and so if people don't understand, there's a room full of tables, and the coaches sit at the table, and the media sit around them, and you can work the room as I did, go from table to table, that sort of thing, but you're sitting at a table. It's, pretty laid back. Well, Belichick, flipped the script on that today, and he decided to stand up while everybody else
Why
is
do you
sitting.
think he did that?
I don't know. It's Belichick.
It's
like
wild,
I've
man.
got to
It's
make a statement. I've got to do something different. I lost the Super Bowl, so I'm standing up.
So he's like, you know what? Do you think he's basically trying to say to other coaches, I'm still the man, I can draw everybody else away from you?
I don't know if it's
I mean, that's
a
what,
bit
right? It's kind of like,
well, yeah.
because I was
little
compelled
bit
for like a second to get up, and I thought, nope, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
I didn't know who it was.
That was it. Over in the corner, BB.
What did he talk about aside from just being?
Oh, he talked about managing the salary cap and starting over again and those sorts of things. Not much in terms of headline grabbing quotes from Belichick, but I wasn't there the whole time. I worked the room, man. You have 1 hour, you've got 32 coaches, and so I came in with the idea of wanting to hit 4 or 5 different coaches, and I ended up hitting like 6 or 7.
I got a headline for you for Belichick. Belichick's headline. All right. Belichick tells all NFL coaches "F you" by drawing press away from their table, standing in a corner.
Yeah, I don't know if he drew. But I don't know if he drew away anybody because people work the room and you go from place to place.
True.
And if you
too.
want Bill Belichick and like the local Boston guys, I mean, they are going to be there to be there for the duration because that's the team they cover. And if you were to talk to beat writers from every team in the league, that's what they do.
That's
so the guy
exactly
from
right.
Miami, he's going to hang out at the Miami table. The guy from Tennessee,
That's
Chicago,
true, there's only a
et
handful
cetera.
of us that go from table to table, including myself. Right?
Yeah, well,
You're right about
there
that.
may be more that do that. There's probably only a handful when you talk about how many media here, and I guess there's probably a couple hundred. 32 beat writers. Maybe some cities will have 2 beat writers, and some have 4. But anyway, that's that. That's the coach's breakfast.
I saw you at Gruden's table. What do you think of Jon Gruden?
It's the same Jon Gruden. I mean, he is very entertaining, and he has a great way of putting some things into perspective. It was good to hear him talk about what's different now for him coming back as a coach as opposed to when he first started as a head coach and some of the differences. And he's talked about this before, as you know, at the Combine, and I'm sure he's talked about it locally in Oakland as well. But it's going to be fun just to kind of see how this thing comes together. What do I think? I think he's got talent when you look at the Raiders having a quarterback and they have an offensive line. And so
that's half the battle.
Yeah. And so Gruden has always been a guy who, there's backgrounds on the offensive side. And the one thing I noticed, just in terms of how active they've been in free agency, I think the message that was there when he was there in Tampa, he likes veteran guys. He likes older guys. And I think one of the things that he expressed today was that, with the younger guys, sometimes you really don't know what you have. And especially for a guy like him coming in, inheriting all of these younger players, there's going to be a learning curve for him and for them. So,
do you think that his voice can play well in the modern age, or has he changed? You know what I'm saying?
That's a great question. I think it can, because I think Jon Gruden is a very really. I understand exactly what you're saying because for him being away from it for 9 years or something like that, a lot has changed.
Yeah.
He talked about it today and talked about how social media is so different and is a big part of what you do in terms of messaging with the players and how they relate to it and how they handle themselves on that platform. So that was just one of the differences. But I think his voice can still resonate. Not so much because they saw him on Monday Night Football, but he was on Monday Night Football for a reason. He was on Monday Night Football because he's a good communicator.
Right.
He's a great storyteller.
Yep.
He's got a lot of charisma.
Yep.
So that will bring you in at least to the point where you listen. Sometimes I guess you might also wonder, well, if a guy's persona or voice wears off just because people have heard it so many times. But that's not going to be the case right now for Jon Gruden. So we'll see how that plays out, years from now. But for now, fresh voice, fresh take. And it's going to be really interesting to see what he learns from his time away from football and how he incorporates that into his interview. And it may be tough for us to see that, but maybe he'll shed some light on it. Other people will, as you see, how things progress with him.
Did you get a chance to talk with Dallas Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett?
No, I didn't. But I heard, he talked about Des Bryant and Alan Hearns. And, the one thing with the Cowboys this year, I was talking to one of their executives here at the meetings, and they have been super active in free agency, especially by Cowboys standards.
Right,
and they have not made the splash pick, right? They are not the Los Angeles Rams getting Ndamukong Suh or the San Francisco 49ers getting Richard Sherman. But they've made a lot of moves that I think really kind of fortify what they're trying to do, address some needs at receiver. So you bring in Alan Hearns being the big one for them, and then you added a couple of offensive linemen, a linebacker, a DB here and there. So I like what the Cowboys have done, especially without having to spend a ton of salary cap dollars. And they didn't have a whole lot anyway. So how you manage those dollars,
that's kind of different for them now.
No, well,
as opposed to getting the big name free agents that we're always looking for them to.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing: they haven't done much in free agency really in a long time. They don't typically get. We could think back to the Deion Sanders,
right? And I think that's subconsciously what I might be doing.
Yeah, that's Dallas, okay? And you go out and you get Charles Haley. I mean, that was 20-something years ago, right?
Right.
But in more recent times,
if you listen to Coach Gruden, some of us are stuck in the past.
No, I hear you. But in more recent times, they really have not been a big-time player in free agency. A lot of their moves around this time of year have involved re-signing some of their own guys. But, so they've made splashes in the offseason, but it's been stuff like giving Tony Romo a big contract or giving Des Bryant a big contract.
Right.
But as far as going out and making moves and bringing in people, that has not really been their MO of late. But like I said, this time they didn't make the splash moves, but they brought in a lot of people. And the fact that they've signed like 5 or 6 new guys already, that's more than they've had in recent years in terms of what they've done on the free agent market.
So you got, you talked to Belichick, I saw you with Gruden. Who else did you see this morning?
I saw Ron Rivera. I saw Sean Payton. I saw Mike Vrabel, Marvin Lewis.
Made the rounds. Of them, who do you give high marks to of the others?
I mean, they're all,
What are your comments?
Yeah, they're all good in their own right, no doubt.
Can Vrabel make the difference?
I think he's an interesting case because you think about how fast of a track that he's had to become an NFL head coach. And I did ask him about that because that was one of the things when he was hired is that people wondered, how this guy gets a job and you have so many other coaches who spend a lot more years in developing.
Well, we're talking about black coaches, all right? We're talking about black anyway.
No, I mean,
seriously, okay?
No, you really and that's white coaches too.
Yeah.
But particularly, African American coaches that have been passed over, and even though in the past few years there have been more African American coaches who've gotten opportunities and interviews and being in the mix, it's still one of those things that it can go from year to year when you think about how fair someone is being treated or not. And you can't always just put it on the race issue.
Sometimes
Because
it's fit.
well, no, not even so much that it's getting the opportunity, but also sometimes I guess it's fit in the sense that someone wants to do this with an offensive coach or that with another one. But the other thing we've seen, and Vrabel is a great example of this, as is Matt Patricia with the Detroit Lions, and almost was Josh McDaniels. But particularly in Vrabel and Patricia's case, I mean, they have joined teams that are, led by general managers who also came out of the Bill Belichick tree.
Right.
And so that sometimes is the connection that you talk about in terms of how one guy gets an opportunity versus another one. And in Vrabel's case, it's that plus it's the fact that he was 1 year as a D coordinator with the Houston Texans. I've got a little bit of a problem with that when I compare that to other people. But by the same token, we talked about Jon Gruden. These teams, and you look at Sean McVay and what he's done with the Los Angeles Rams, it's not automatic that he will fail.
Right.
Okay, but that's what they're searching for. You're always searching for that next hot coach. And one of the things that people said about Sean McVay last year, and I really have a lot of respect for Sean McVay and look at what he did in his first season, but one of the things that people told you when you talked about him last year and the year before in terms of him being a guy in that mix was, what is it about him? And his personality is pretty special, and I talked about that with Gruden, but I think he just does a great job of communicating and relating, and he's a football nerd at 31 years old. You look at Sean McVay and you say, oh, yeah, that's a cool guy you might see.
He looks like a surfer dude.
Yeah, you see a surfer dude or a dude over in the corner at the wine bar. I mean, and he's a real chill personality. I mean, very approachable, very likable, all of that. So I can see where that works for him. But what people have also told me, and I'm talking about coaches around the league, people who are with other teams, the thing that they respect about him is that he really does have that grinder mentality, and he really, has put the work in. So sometimes it's not just about age, but I mentioned him just to kind of get back to the point about Vrabel.
Yeah.
And what happens is that you are looking for that next Sean McVay, that next Mike Tomlin, a young guy. You're trying to catch some lightning in a bottle. Sean Payton was young. He wasn't as young as these guys.
Wilkes is the guy.
Well, see, I wouldn't classify him as a young guy. I mean, he's had some time in the league, but when I think of like when Mike Tomlin got hired as the youngest coach in the league, and Sean McVay at 31, and that's where Mike Vrabel fits in as a young guy without a lot of years. Now, a guy like Steve Wilkes, no, he didn't have to wait as long as Bruce Arians, the former Cardinals coach who he replaced, but he is a guy who has been in the league and has definitely paid his dues for more years than Mike Vrabel.
He looks young, though.
Yeah, he looks young. That's good.
He looks like he's, it's like, he looks like he's only 30.
Yeah. Hey, well, hopefully, it's funny because, over the years, we've seen like the pictures of presidents compared to how they look when they went into office, and then 4 years later.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's some of that with head coaches
Have you seen
too.
the one with Trump lately?
I'm, he looks about the same to me, but I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
Well,
but I'm just saying that's a traditional thing with presidents. You look at how they looked when they went into office. I remember that with Bill Clinton. I remember it with Obama.
Yep.
I remember it with Bush.
Yep.
You compared the pictures over the years and how they looked when they went.
Reagan.
When they went into office, and then 4 years later. Well, I think there's some of that with head coaches in the NFL. You look at them, you take a picture when they start, and then 3-4 years later, let's see what the wear and tear is.
I got to ask you, did you ask Gruden, because today is supposed to be the day that the NFL looks at the Las Vegas plans for the Raiders, the $2 billion stadium for one team, which is unheard of in the NFL.
Well, I think part of it is a couple things. When you talk about the price of a stadium It depends on the market. You build a stadium in Los Angeles, it's going to cost you more in labor costs than if you build a stadium in Indianapolis, if you build a stadium in Dallas, in Texas, with the labor costs. So, that's a factor. So I'm assuming that Las Vegas, labor prices, just the inflation over the years from, you built a stadium 3 years ago versus now. I mean, these things kind of escalate. So $2 billion now for a stadium. I mean, they're talking about stuff goes up and up. They're talking about the Carolina Panthers.
Can they afford it? Can the Raiders afford that stadium? Is one team.
Well, guess what?
Because the team is like two teams, like Giants and Jets, $1.6 billion. Rams and Chargers.
Well, I'm sure if they've gotten to this point where the thing is being built and the franchise is moving, they have the projections that they can afford it. So let's just assume that. When you look at the revenue streams of NFL teams and how that has escalated over the years and continues to be on that upward trend, I think that's something. But the other thing, and I don't know because I haven't really looked into it, but I'm sure that if they're going to have a stadium, that they're going to have other events that they will try to attract to that stadium that will add to those increasing revenues as it relates to the stadium. So I'm not too worried about anybody else's money right now. But I will
try to focus on us.
Yeah, but I will say, Zenny, is that you expect that.
I'm kind of joking there, folks. But
you expect that as people come up with these plans for these stadiums, that it's obviously on some semblance of sound financial footing, and like I said, when you talk, well, but again, you're talking about the NFL putting a franchise there, moving a franchise that has moved multiple times in the past, so they want to do it right, and as they did in Los Angeles. So I mean, I think there's a lot of thought that goes into that, and for it to get to this point where it's going to happen and the stadium going up, I don't know if that's a major concern. Maybe a bigger concern is, how are you gonna pay Jon Gruden $100 million? No, I don't know. I'm just kidding. But all of those things.
I had your faith. I just think it's gonna be the Raiders failing. That's just me.
Well, we'll see. But I think when you look at the franchise kind of and where it has been when it comes to stadium revenues in Oakland. Versus the potential of this, you kind of have to swing.
But they could have made more money in Oakland. They just didn't do anything.
Well, you know a whole lot more about it than I do.
Bay Area is more expensive than Vegas, man. You can't make it in the Bay Area. You can't make it anywhere.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
We got a home, and average cost of a house is $300,000 in San Francisco. You got the A's put $135 million bid up for the Coliseum. And I broke this story last night because I got a call from a friend I can't say. 2 tech companies stepped forward and outbid them by double.
Wow. Yeah.
There's money in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Vegas has show money. Yeah. We got real money in the Bay Area.
Yeah. Well, right now the deal's done. I mean, they're going to Las Vegas, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, he's the great one. He's the cool daddy. We gotta figure out some unique nickname.
Cool Papa Bell.
Cool Papa Bell.
That's been used.
I like Cool Papa. I'll stick with that. Cool
Papa
Bell.
That's the one I borrowed from the Negro League's legend.
I like that. Cool Papa Bell.
Yeah, man.
Hey, you seen Black Panther?
Not yet.
What? Dude. Wakanda forever.
I hear great things,
it's
man.
It's a great movie, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thanks a lot, man.
Okay, Zen.
You got it.
My pleasure.
You got it, man. Definitely.